Hey guys, welcome to the video. My name is Salt. I'm an LR5 with over 7,000 hours in Warframe, and I usually do build videos, but this week I wanted to do something a little bit more fun, and so we're going to have some tier lists throughout the week. The first one is going to be Kuva weapons, the second one is going to be Tenant weapons, and then the third one's going to be Coda weapons, and I think that's going to be Kuva today on Monday, Tenant on Wednesday, and Coda on Friday. But before we start, let's go over our commenter board. Our first commenter of the last video was LimGG, and our top commenter of the last video was Andre, and he's got a really long name, so I'm just going to leave it there at Andre. So Andre is the top commenter, and then we have our recent channel supporters here of Whoop-De-Wham, Nice Bear, and Colonel 06. Thank you so much for your support. Okay, so we're on Tiermaker, and how we're going to be structuring this is S tier is going to be for Kuva weapons that are powerful enough to still compete with the current meta in the game, the really strong weapons like Incarnants, for instance. So these are weapons that can still compete versus Incarnants. A tier are going to be weapons that, you know, they fall off a little bit versus the strongest weapons in the game, but they're still really, really powerful. And maybe on some very specific Warframes or with specific builds, they can be just as strong as Incarnants. B tier is going to be for just generally good weapons. This is kind of like your average okay category. You don't feel great playing these weapons, but you don't feel bad either. They're just generally good. C tier is going to be for weapons where you start feeling kind of bad using them. You feel a little bit underpowered. D tier is for weapons where you feel really underpowered. You feel like you're almost being punished for using these weapons. And then I added a special tier, I can't say that word. I added a special tier here called Situational S, because there are a couple of Kuva weapons where they're kind of okay, but they are situationally S tier if played in a very specific way or on very specific Warframes. So I added this tier just because I didn't want to maybe like undervalue them where they can get massive value on those situations. All right, we're going to start with the weapon that I consider the most average weapon in the game, and that's going to be the Kuva Karak. The Kuva Karak is just your Billy basic assault rifle. It is a Lich weapon, so it's kind of like an assault rifle +1 because it's an assault rifle that gets a free element because of the progenitor element. So it kind of pulls it ahead of other non-Lich assault rifles, but at the end of the day, it's still pretty damn average. And so for that reason, we're going to put it right in the middle at B tier to start off. Just because you don't feel overpowered using it and you don't feel underpowered, you just kind of feel average, and it's a perfect place for it. Next, we have the Kuva Drakgoon. The Kuva Drakgoon is a shotgun that has two different firing modes. The first fire mode is just a quick shot mode where you just click your left click and it fires. And the second mode is the charge shot where you hold left click and it's going to charge a shot and then it shoots off. Now the charging mode has 1.5 innate punch through, has a little bit of increased stats as well. That's not the big deal. The big deal is more of that, is that 1.5 punch through, because you can get double or triple damage depending on enemy density with that punch through. So most of the time, depending on enemy density, you're going to be using the charge up attack to get that punch through. And it doesn't feel that good. It doesn't feel that good because most charge up weapons you're getting a lot of value out of. Like the Kuva Bramma, for instance, is kind of like it's a bow, but it has like a charge up mechanic where you pull the bow back and you shoot it and you get this big explosion. Or other charging weapons, you get some kind of big effect after the charge. What do you get with the Kuva Drakgoon? Well, you charge it and it shoots a basic shotgun round. That's really it. And then you have to do it every single shot. So really annoying to use, doesn't feel very powerful. Yeah, I just don't like this weapon at all. So I'm going to be putting it in D tier. Next, we have the Kuva Kohm. The Kuva Kohm is another shotgun, but this is a really good shotgun actually. So this is an automatic shotgun. As you're shooting, it gets faster and faster and faster. Because of that, it's just easy to use, really powerful, and there are some specific builds that this gets even stronger on. And there are also some, I'm not familiar with these specific builds, but I have a lot of friends that play AFK builds with the Kuva Kohm. I don't know how the hell it works. It's something to do with Excalibur Umbra. You use Excalibur Umbra, you go into your operator and he runs around with the Kuva Kohm. I don't know why the Kohm is the best for that, but a lot of people use the Kohm on those weird AFK builds. So yeah, Kuva Kohm going to go into A tier, even without talking about those AFK builds. It's just a really powerful weapon. I don't think it's at the top of A. I think it's more in the middle or maybe even the low end of A. We don't really have anything in A yet though, so we'll just leave it here for now. Next, we have the Kuva Bramma. The Kuva Bramma used to be really, really powerful. It's still really powerful, but there was a ammo nerf that happened a few years ago now. So it's hard to maintain on low enemy density maps. On high enemy density maps, if you're doing like survival, disruption, it's not that hard to maintain. You usually get enough ammo like per shot. But certain game modes, or if you have to kind of like split your team up and maybe one team has more spawns than the other and you're on the other side, you could be struggling with the Kuva Bramma. I still think it's an S tier weapon, but it's not as strong as it used to be. I think it's definitely towards the low end of S tier here. Again, we don't have anything in S tier yet, but we'll keep it up here in S tier. Just remember with the Kuva Bramma, you don't just want to be shooting this thing willy-nilly. You really want to try to get value out of it because you need to be making up that ammo. So you want like every shot to maybe take out, 4 or 5 enemies. That way, hopefully one of them drops ammo for you. The next weapon we have here is the Kuva Hind. The Kuva Hind is another pretty basic assault rifle. Now, unlike the Kuva Karak, it actually has 3 different firing modes. It has a semi-automatic, a burst, and an automatic fire mode. When I did my video for the Kuva Hind, I was trying to do some testing to see if there was one mode that was way better than the others, because each mode does have slightly different stats. Like the crit basically gets better and better the slower the fire rate goes. So the semi-automatic will have better crit, but obviously it shoots slower. I felt like the burst was kind of the, in between. It kind of just felt like the best of both worlds. But the kill testing with all 3 modes, there wasn't really much of a difference there. So really at the end of the day, it comes down to whatever the hell you like to use there. I personally like the burst mode on the Kuva Hind, but it is still a pretty basic assault rifle. And so it's going to go right in B tier with the Kuva Karak, its brother. Do I think it's better than the Kuva Karak? I don't know. Maybe. I think maybe slightly. It's hard to say. They're both extremely similar. So we'll just put them next to each other here. Next, we have the Kuva Hek. The Kuva Hek is a very interesting one, and it's actually one of the ones why I made this situational S tier. So let me try to explain this. When Archons first came out, they had a ridiculous amount of damage attenuation, and it was a complete slog to kill an Archon. And so people were developing these one-shot Archon killing builds, and I was using the Kuva Hek for it. And there's a few other bosses where you can one-shot with the Kuva Hek. Now, normally the Kuva Hek, it has 2 different firing modes. It has 4 shots in the chamber, and you can just shoot the 4 shots normally, or you can press its alternate fire and it blows all those 4 shots at once. So that's what you're using against these bosses to one-shot them, basically, to kind of bypass a lot of this damage attenuation. But if you're using this for mobbing, like just regular trash killing, or even using it like versus Eximuses and maybe even Thraxes, it could be kind of useful against Thraxes, I guess. But if you're just using this for mobbing, it is horrible. It is so slow. There's only 4 shots in the chamber. You have to reload so often. They shoot slowly. It's just not a good mobbing weapon. But for those specific boss one-shot builds, like this was the thing. Now, I think it's a little bit weaker nowadays because they kind of scaled back a lot of that damage attenuation. And so you can just go into an Archon hunt now and pretty much use anything. You could probably use the damn Kuva Drakgoon and take out an Archon pretty quickly nowadays. But so you don't really need that one-shot Kuva Hek build anymore, but it's still there if you want it. So that's why I made the situational S tier. If I was just rating it for mobbing, it would be D tier, right, with the Kuva Drakgoon. But if we're going to be rating it for one-shot boss killing, it would be S tier for that specific situation. So we'll leave it into this situational S tier here. Next, we have the Kuva Tonkor. The Kuva Tonkor is a grenade launcher. It fires 1 grenade at a time. There is kind of like a little tech you can do where you can add primed, oh man, I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It's the primed mod that gives you plus 55% magazine capacity. I think it's magazine warp, prime magazine warp, that could be the one. But if you use that one on the Kuva Tonkor, it actually gives you 2 grenades. So you can go pop, pop, and then reload. Or you can go the route where you use the reload speed prime mod. I can't remember what that one's called either, but you can use that one where you shoot 1 shot, but then your reload's really quick. So you go either way with the Kuva Tonkor, where you're either 2-shotting, going for a reload, or you go the route where you go with the super quick reload with the other prime mod there. And it's pretty powerful. It's a good little grenade launcher. It just unfortunately gets overshadowed by a lot of the other AoE weapons in the Kuva list and just in the game in general. That's really the issue with the Kuva Tonkor. If we were just like rating it by itself, yeah, it's a cool little weapon. It's really good. But comparatively to other Kuva weapons that are just better at AoE, pretty average to maybe slightly above average. So we're gonna put it in A tier, but it's really, really low on A tier. Probably honestly could go into the top of B tier too. But for now, we'll put it at the bottom of A tier. All right, the next weapon is the Kuva Zarr. Now the Kuva Zarr is an AoE cannon. It has 3 shots in its magazine. Remember how we were saying that the Kuva Tonkor gets overshadowed by some other AoE weapons? Well, the Kuva Zarr is kind of the premier one that overshadows the Tonkor, unfortunately. So the Kuva Zarr right off the rip gets 3 shots in the magazine. Those 3 shots shoot out really fast. So if you want to get some, heavy burst DPS, you can just kind of spam them. It does, the one thing I'll give to the Kuva Tonkor versus the Kuva Zarr is that the Kuva Tonkor has better ammo economy for an AoE weapon. The Kuva Zarr is kind of in the same boat as the Bramma, where it used to be really, really powerful when you could just spam it for days. But ever since that ammo nerf a few years ago, it's still powerful. You just have to be really careful. You have to really make sure that your shots are getting value. That way you can get your ammo back to keep using it. But yeah, it's going to go in S tier with the Bramma. I think there are more situations where the Zarr is better than the Bramma than the Bramma being better than the Zarr. There are going to be some, weird situations where the Bramma might be better on specific Warframes. But yeah, I think the Zarr is S tier. I love using this thing. Also, it's a friggin' ship cannon. I used to use this on Hydroid just for the aesthetic because Hydroid's kind of like a ship captain kind of aesthetic. So I was like, oh, I'm going to give him a ship cannon as a weapon. So yeah, just really cool aesthetic too. So Kuva Zarr S tier, just be really careful with shooting it. Make sure you get your ammo back. Next weapon we have here is Kuva Quartakk. Kuva Quartakk is an assault rifle that has 2 different firing modes. If you hip fire it, it shoots automatic. And if you aim down sights, it shoots semi-automatic, but it has way better stats. The correct way to be using the Kuva Quartakk is to be aiming down sights. If you aim down sights, it's going to be in B tier. If you shoot it hip fire automatic, it's going to be like C or D tier. So definitely be aiming down sights with it. Now, it's pretty comparable to the Karak and the Hind. The big difference is that it's semi-automatic, whereas the Karak is automatic. The Hind can be all 3 of them, really. I prefer burst, though, personally. But it's still pretty comparable. I feel like you'll get more damage out of the Quartakk than you will the Karak or the Hind, but the Karak and the Hind are easier to use because they're like automatic or burst. Whereas the Quartakk being semi-automatic, you really need to be getting your headshots to get value. So it takes a little bit more skill, I think, than the Karak and the Hind, but you get a little bit more value out of it. And so for that reason, I'm gonna put it above them. Just again, remember to be using the aim down sights mode instead of that hip fire mode with it. Next, we have the Kuva Kraken. This is a secondary. And this, I'm trying to remember exactly here. This, if you alternate fire it, it will fire all of the shots in the magazine, but I believe it does not let you aim down sights, which is a big deal because you can't get use out of scope or whatever the secondary scope equivalent is. Crosshairs, I think. So you don't want to be alternate firing it. You actually just want to be regular firing it. And in that case, it's just a little burst pistol. It's okay. It's okay. I think this will be the first one we put into C tier here. You don't feel like you're being punished for using it, but you definitely feel pretty underpowered. This is a burst pistol here. The Hind was a burst rifle. The Hind definitely feels better than the Kraken. The other issue the Kraken has is that it doesn't have a big magazine capacity. So, you burst a few times, maybe take out 3 or 4 enemies and that's it. And you got to go for a reload. So the kill potential, the kill per minute potential is pretty low on it as well. So I think it's a great candidate for C tier. We'll keep it into C tier here. All right, we're about halfway done here. We have the Kuva Brakk next. The Kuva Brakk is a secondary weapon. It's a little hand shotgun. And this does pretty good damage. It does pretty good DPS. It's just that it's very close range. Its spread is pretty intense. So you got to be pretty close to the enemy to use it. And its magazine is small, but it lets you shoot that magazine really quickly. So if you have no self-control like me, you'll blaze through your magazine, and when your magazine's over, you'll see that you only downed 1 or 2 enemies. Now you can down a lot more than that, but you have to be a little bit more careful with your shots. So practice some self-control, and this is advice I need to take too on the Kuva Brakk, and it could be a pretty decent weapon. I think it could either be in the low B or high C tier. I think I'm gonna give it high C. I was really torn between giving it low B too, though. I think we'll give it high C though. Okay, next weapon we're going to talk about is Kuva Ogris. This is a very special weapon. I want to preface this by saying that on the Kuva Ogris, you should be using an augment for it called Nightwatch Napalm. Nightwatch Napalm, when you hit it, target or a floor or a wall, it's going to like leave this pool that's going to do dot damage to enemies that enter it or that were in that pool. And that pool is going to stay there for, I think it's 6 seconds, if I remember correctly. So you get a lot of like lingering value and lingering DPS that happens. And what that means is that the Kuva Ogris is extremely powerful on Warframes who are busy on the controls. A Warframe that I'm familiar with that is very busy on the controls is Lavos. Lavos doesn't have a lot of time to be using these like really precise weapons that require him to be ADSing and looking for headshots and things. He just wants to shoot something, get a lot of value, go back to clicking his buttons to using his abilities. And the Kuva Ogris is amazing for that because he can shoot it out at a doorway or something, or some area where enemies are coming, and he gets value out of it, and he's going to continue to get value out of it for a certain amount of seconds. I guess I think it's like 6 seconds, and it's great on those Warframes. I'm familiar with Lavos. I'm sure there's other Warframes that this is great on, but we'll put this in A tier at the top of A tier here. I think in general on pretty much all Warframes, this is an A tier weapon, but on those specific Warframes that are busy on the controls, I think this could definitely be in the S tier for those specific Warframes. Okay, next we have the Kuva Seer. Now, for meme purposes, the Kuva Seer should be S tier, but spoiler, it's not gonna get S tier here, but maybe for meme purposes. All right, for meme purposes, it should be S tier. So the Kuva Seer is a heavy pistol. It does a lot of damage most of the time in early to mid steel path. You're just gonna be like one-shot headshotting enemies. So really powerful. It just has horrible ammo economy. Like its maximum ammo is completely garbage. You have to use that one mod that almost no weapon uses that increases maximum ammo capacity. I think it's one of the Exilus mods, Trick Mag, I think, or something. So you need to use that on the Kuva Seer, which is kind of weird. You have to kind of compensate for its bad ammo economy. Also, DE decided to give it a pretty intense zoom, which is really awkward to use on the weapon. So if you had a Riven with negative zoom, that could definitely make it feel a lot better. Honestly, if you got a Riven with negative zoom, I'd be maybe inclined to put this into the low B tier. But with my cat is running down yelling. I don't know if you hear her, but it's okay, little one. It's okay. You want a treat? I'll give you a treat after this, okay? So Kuva Seer, we're gonna put into high C tier. Again, if it didn't have that crazy zoom thing, I'd probably put it into low B, but we'll put it into high C tier. All right, the next weapon we're gonna be going over is the Kuva Chakkhurr. The Kuva Chakkhurr is a rifle that does massive headshot damage. It also does pretty massive damage in AoE around the target you hit. And so it's just generally a really good weapon. It's a great sniper weapon. Its negative is that it has bad fire rate, but it doesn't matter too much on sniper rifles because you kind of want to take time to aim in between each shot anyway and try to get like another headshot. You could also use specific Warframes to just completely remove that negative, like Wisp or Harrow that give you external fire rate could basically just remove the bad fire rate of the Kuva Chakkhurr. Not that I think you need it, but yeah, if you wanted to spam it more, you could use it on those Warframes. So yeah, in general, I think it's a S tier weapon, really, really powerful weapon. I think on Wisp and Harrow, it's even better for them. So yeah, S tier. Next, we have the Kuva Twin Stubbas. These are secondary weapons, just like dual pistols, basically. Really good. They're really high in slash weighting, so they kind of have like built-in hunter munitions kind of on them as a secondary. Yeah, they're pretty good. I would actually say they are pretty comparable to these assault rifles. I mean, a lot of the secondaries so far haven't really been comparable to these B tier assault rifles. I think the Twin Stubbas definitely are. I don't know that they are better than the Karak, the Hind, or the Quartakk. I think they're still kind of behind these other three, but they're pretty close. They're pretty damn close to them. You might make the argument that they could be better or worse than the Karak. I don't think they beat the Hind. I don't think they beat the Quartakk though. Next we have the Kuva Sobek. This is another special one. This is another one of the reasons I put the situational S tier one here. This is an automatic shotgun. It's pretty good. If we were just going to rate it on how it functions normally, I would say it's high B tier. I would put it over the Kuva Quartakk here. It's just that on specific warframes, it has a augment called acid shells that work really good on those specific warframes. Sarin is kind of like the reason the Kuva Sobek was so popular. I have heard that with the new spider frame Araxia, it also works pretty well on Araxia with acid shells. So on those specific warframes, using acid shells, really good. I would say, you know, S tier on those specific warframes. In general though, you know, without acid shells, I would say it's high B. And acid shells is weird. The damage that happens with acid shells is based on the starting level base HP, and so it doesn't scale very well, and so that's why it only works on a few warframes that, you know, do other things to make it better. So you can't just plop acid shells in the Kuva Sobek on like any warframe and expect it to do good. You can test it yourself. It'll be pretty bad. It has to be very specific warframes where acid shells actually feels really, really good on the Kuva Sobek there. So yeah, again, in general, I would say it's high B, but on those specific warframes, S tier. All right, the next weapon we have is the Kuva Nukor. The Kuva Nukor is a secondary weapon. It's a chaining beam weapon, meaning that when you hit your primary target, it can chain to 2 additional enemies within 9 meters for 50% of the damage that main beam is doing. So it's pretty good. It's also got innate radiation. It's got innate microwave, which is a weird status that's unique to the Nukor, but it still acts as a unique status in terms of ranged CO and things like that. So really powerful. It's a really good damaging weapon. People use it to prime as well. It's a pretty good primer. I would say that nowadays there's better ways to just passively prime that you don't have to like switch to your secondary and lose time in DPS doing, but it still remains a pretty decent primer. But even as a damage source, it is amazing. And so I would say it is easily S tier, top of S tier. I think there are more situations where the you know, Nukor is used rather than these other three, but these other three are still really powerful. So that is the Kuva Nukor. I don't think anyone's surprised at that. Next, we have the Kuva Shildeg, which is the only melee weapon as far as Kuva Liches go. There are other Lich melee weapons, like as far as like the Tenant Sisters or the Coda dudes, but for the Kuva Liches, it's only the Shildeg. Now, melee weapons in general are ridiculously powerful, and even though the Kuva Shildeg is kind of a meh, whatever melee weapon, it's got a free element, that's about it. It's still ridiculously powerful just because of the fact that it's a melee weapon. And so it's in one of these situations where we can't really compare it to the weapons here, because if we did, it would be S tier. It would probably be at the top of S tier just because, again, melee weapons are ridiculously powerful. So we really have to compare it to what is eventually going to come up when we do the Tenant Sister tier list and their weapons, the Tenant weapons. Because the Tenant weapons, I believe there are 4 or 5 melee weapons there, and they're all pretty damn good. I would say a lot of them are better than the Shildeg. And so I don't want to give this S tier just because I know the Tenant melees are some of them are going to be better than it. So I want to either give it B or A tier. I think we'll give it A tier. Again, it's just this powerful because it's a melee weapon. You can take any melee weapon and it's going to be A or S, right? Even a meme melee weapon like the Ghoul Saw is probably, you know, taken off the Shildeg here. Even the Ghoul Saw would probably be at the top of S tier. And it's a meme weapon. It's just, that's how powerful melee is in the game. So Kuva Shildeg, we'll give A tier. All right, we're almost at the end. We only have 2 art guns left. I accidentally added another Sobek here, so disregard this one. We just have 2 art guns. We have the Kuva Ayanga and the Kuva Grattler. So let's go over the Kuva Ayanga first. This is an automatic grenade launcher. Pretty good. It's a good weapon. The thing is that it's not good enough in anything that it does. And we have to compare this in a vacuum. We're going to compare the Ayanga and the Grattler in a vacuum versus other art guns in the game, just because it wouldn't be fair to compare these two to these other weapons. They're completely different. They do different types of content. So the Kuva Ayanga is good. It's an automatic grenade launcher, but does it do the best AoE? Nope. There's art guns that do better AoE, better mobbing. Does it do good single target? It does okay single target, but it doesn't do the best single target. There are way more art guns that do better single target. So it's stuck in this weird, like, not great at anything, kind of like in between. So there's not a real reason to use the Kuva Ayanga, unfortunately. It's not bad. There's just not a real reason to use it. And so in terms of arc guns, we're gonna give this C tier. Again, don't think about comparing this to the other weapons on this list, because like in terms of power, the Ayanga would completely dumpster these other three. I'm just thinking in terms of other arc guns in the game. I think the Ayanga is C tier compared to them. And now we have the Kuva Grattler. Kuva Grattler is another weapon that's pretty heavy AoE, just like the Ayanga is. It's just that it's better at AoE than the Ayanga is. And so it actually has a niche where it's really good. It is really heavy in the AoE department. You could pretty much just aim at the floor and nuke half a room pretty much with the Grattler. So it is a really, really easy weapon to use. There's not really much to say after that. It's kind of like a big flak machine gun, just aim in a general direction and it's going to damage everything in that general area. So we're gonna give this A tier. Its niche is AoE, of course. It's not gonna do great for single target, but it's gonna do way better in AoE than the Ayanga is. And that's why it actually has a niche that it's good at. So we'll give it A tier here. All right, so we got through putting everything in its place. I think the only thing I'm not super happy with that I would change personally would probably be the Kuva Tonkor. I feel like maybe it should be the top of B instead of A tier. So I'm gonna go ahead and move this down. Just because it's kind of like an Ayanga situation. It's good, it's just not good enough. There are a lot of other AoE weapons that are gonna do a lot better than it. So, you know, why the hell would you pick it? I don't also want it to be at the same level as the Ogris. The Ogris is a weapon that questionably should be S tier. I think the Ogris is way, way better than the Tonkor. So having the Tonkor and the Ogris on the same tier was kind of irking me there. So yeah, I'm gonna move the Tonkor down to B tier. And this will be the final results of what I think the tier should be. So let me know what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching, guys. And I hope you have an amazing day. All right, bye.